Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches.
Our time is now with LSU basketball.
The players.
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, baby.
The recruits.
One way or another, we're going to make history.
And those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the SEC.
LSU is the best job in football.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU talk.
I came here to win. We're going to win immediately.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Louisiana Beef Industry Council, Boudreaux's Electrical Services, and Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Case Kieschnick and our hosts, Todd Horn, Jeff Palermo, and Glenn Gilbo.
Players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio.
The rivalry between LSU and Ole Miss is turned up another notch today as news breaks that in a state court, Lafayette County State Court in Mississippi, civil complaints have been filed against LSU football defensive end Princewill Umanmielen and LSU offensive lineman Devin Harper because, according to the University of Mississippi, these two players signed revenue sharing agreements with the school in early January, then went ahead and broke those contracts. And according to those contracts, based on what the University of Mississippi is saying, that there is a provision requiring them to compensate the university with a predetermined amount, basically a buyout, if they depart before fulfilling their commitment. And, of course, both of those players did transfer to LSU after originally saying that they were going to stay at Ole Miss after Lane Kiffin left. And apparently they signed, according to the University of Mississippi, signed revenue sharing agreements and then entered the transfer portal, signed with LSU. And Ole Miss has been sending letters to them and to LSU requesting that buyout money. They have not been able to receive it. $550,000 from Umanmielen, and Harper's, they are seeking to get $400,000 from him. Here to talk about it, he's got a great article on the Clarion-Ledger website. Sam Hutchens is all over the story, and our timing to have you on our show, Sam, could not be any better. Thank you for spending some time talking with us. I know there's a lot going on, especially with this breaking story, but we appreciate your time tonight.
Right, I'm impressed that you summed it up. That'd be like a whole chapter in a John Grisham book or something, getting all that out. But yeah, great summary. That's, it's not dying down until September the 19th, guys. There's always stuff popping up between these two schools. Well, as me and Glenn were talking about, there's always two sides to a story, but at least the side that the University of Mississippi is presenting, it seems, now, if it is true that they actually did, I guess, is that the question? Did they actually really sign revenue sharing agreements that require them to pay a buyout if they left and went to another school? Is that what is in doubt here? Yeah, so Ole Miss has been doing that for a while now, and for all players who sign revenue sharing agreements, or certainly a wide bulk of them, and the top players like Princewill, Umanmielen, and Devin Harper are, Ole Miss has been putting in buyout clauses is the easiest word to put it. So yeah, and it's the type of thing that Ole Miss is saying, hey, this is very concrete, black and white, because it's a buyout in a revenue sharing contract. And then you're right. I haven't seen any sort of official comment from LSU yet, but maybe their side is a little different. But yeah, that's kind of what's being litigated here in Lafayette County.
Hey, Sam, Glenn Gilbo here. Thanks for joining us. Do you know, or do you have any guess that maybe the players spent some of their revenue share money they got from Ole Miss before they went to LSU, or is that a question? Yeah, I don't know that, and that could play into it, because I think that the thing that jumped out to me the most from Ole Miss's timeline that they provided me and some of the other beat reporters with is Ole Miss said that they contacted the two players who didn't respond and didn't pay, and then Ole Miss said, so it reached out to LSU,
who declined to play. But here's the rub: is a lot of these contracts, right? And I certainly think it would make sense for Princewill and Devin transferring to negotiate that into their LSU deal, right? If you're going to have a buyout, you go to LSU and maybe you say, hey, can y'all pay this for me?
Yeah, they paid Lane Kiffin's buyout.
I don't know if LSU did that or not.
Right.
And that's kind of the rub, is like, who is even ultimately responsible here for? And, if it's purely with the two players, then do they even have the funds? It's interesting.
And let me ask you, too, I think in the story, Keith Carter said that this has happened with previous Ole Miss players who transferred. Did he mean that other players transferred and actually paid Ole Miss their buyout? And do you know who those players are, or did he say?
Yeah, he told me that. I actually asked him, I said, have you kind of done the inverse of this when I last talked to Keith? And he told me that, yes, Ole Miss has paid buyouts from incoming transfers. But he didn't give you the names on that. Yeah. But, yeah, and his point there was to say, like, it's kind of a bad look, right, to sue the individual kids who are 20 years old. But Keith's point was, a lot of times you're effectively suing the school. And,
right.
As long as the school has made an agreement to pay on behalf of the player. But I think that's what's got to get sorted out here.
So did Ole Miss pay the buyout of the Clemson player, the linebacker?
Yeah. I asked about Pirelli, and they Ole Miss has been that's the player that they've been quietest on throughout all of
Imagine that.
So I wish I could tell you that. Yeah, I don't know that.
Let's hear from Case Kieschnick. He's got a question here, our producer.
Yeah, so you mentioned the optics of it and how it might look bad suing some 20-year-old players. Do you see there's any world where this doesn't end in LSU taking that buyout? And if they do, does that then count against their revenue share cap for this season?
Yes. So my understanding is it does count against the revenue share cap. So here's the unspoken thing that I totally understood why maybe LSU is definitely planning on paying this, and they have funds earmarked, but I totally understood why LSU wasn't just volunteering to give up these funds. Don't just hand it over to the enemy.
Right,
so
because LSU...
I totally get it. Ultimately, I feel like if this goes to lawsuits, and especially in Mississippi, because of the black and white nature of revenue share contracts, I have trouble imagining a scenario where a side wearing purple and gold doesn't pay, whether that's the players or the school is, I guess, kind of up to those two entities.
Now, LSU's statement on all of this is that they are not party to the contract, that they were not involved. They did not sign this contract, the revenue sharing agreement. Devin Harper and Princewill Umanmielen were the two that actually signed it. So, but I would imagine LSU's, in my mind, they have to step in and help these kids. I would think
they got the kids, they get the baggage.
Yeah.
But you're right. That is absolutely true. That nowhere was LSU mentioned in the deal that was signed shortly after the Fiesta Bowl between an Ole Miss player and Ole Miss University. Right? LSU is not part of that anywhere. So yeah, that's the rub in this whole thing.
Well, let me ask you, too. So just to repeat, Keith Carter told you that in the past, Ole Miss has gotten transfers from other schools who had buyouts to the other school, and Ole Miss paid those buyouts, correct?
Yes.
Right.
And I think his point there was that the school usually pays.
Right. So Ole Miss is saying, we paid it. Why don't you pay it, LSU?
Yeah. And now he didn't say, Umanmielen and Harper are good players. He didn't tell me if that buyout was $20,000 from Ball State or what the sums are, because obviously this is no amount of money to seize at. So that's the note that I would draw there is it's a different conversation if it's hey, $10,000 from Kent State versus what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, exactly. Now, they provided you, the Ole Miss administration provided you a timeline on what happened. Did they actually provide media members there with the actual revenue sharing agreement that Harper and Umanmielen signed?
No, they did not provide the actual paperwork. So it's just in the when I had the story, just checking on the court archives and all that, you could see the formal complaint that they issued in court, which you have to include all the details. But there was not the official contract in there. It was just kind of a write-up of what they said was in the contract.
So what happens next? Is there a hearing coming up soon? And I can't imagine Ole Miss is going to lose in their own backyard on this kind of issue.
Yeah, and that's my question. Certainly, this is, of course, as you guys know, a civil lawsuit, right? Just like, the type of lawsuit you'd throw out if you had a fence line dispute with your neighbor or whatever, So there's no jury or anything. A lot of this is sides coming in and, paperwork and all that and seeing. But yeah, no, that's my question too, is where does this go from here? And, I imagine that, my ultimate guess is that LSU or someone, I would imagine that this could just get paid and not have to go through all the court, because really I don't think either side wants the court and looking bad and frankly having to deal with all this right before the season. So if I'm just taking bets, my sort of guess is that this is kind of the catalyst for the two sides working together and figuring something out.
Is there any world where LSU or one of the players could file some sort of appeal to get that case moved to a federal court or an interstate court to where it's not in a Mississippi court?
Yeah, you're testing my law degree, which I don't have.
That's a good question, though. I think Kay should be an attorney, not a reporter. My guess is that because the contract was in in Mississippi.
In Mississippi and through with the Mississippi school. I imagine they would have trouble moving that because Ole Miss is the plaintiff in this. But, yeah, I'm not sure about that.
I do think this forces LSU's hand to provide more of a comment than just, hey, we're not party to the contract.
Exactly, because that's the players they got. But it is interesting because LSU and Ole Miss both have very good law schools, man. This could be like the undercard. It could be the undercard on September 19th.
Guys, I'm so excited for that. I'm more excited to watch that game than the college football playoff game. I don't know what that says about my soul, but as a just a fan of college and frankly a fan of drama a little bit, that will be such a fascinating game to watch.
Well, Sam, I'm glad you brought that up because that's originally why we asked you on the show.
Let's do it. Hey, Sam, because we did not anticipate this happening. Could we hold you on for another segment and actually talk ball with you? Or do you got to run?
Sure thing. I'm having a good time with you guys. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so Let's go ahead and take our break, and then we'll actually talk about what might actually happen on the football field instead of the courtroom come September. So Sam Hutchens is our guest from the Clarion-Ledger. More coming up here on Tiger Rag Radio.
I'm Richard Fontenot, president of the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. My brother and I grow rice, soybeans, and raise crawfish on our farm in Evangeline Parish. For a fourth-generation farmer like myself, Louisiana Farm Bureau is as much a part of my life as checking traps or harvesting rice. Our organization is more than 145,000 members strong, and we've been around for more than 100 years. The Louisiana Farm Bureau spans generations, and we want you to join our family.
Visit lafarmbureau.org. The Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation, the voice of Louisiana agriculture.
How you doing? This is Snoop Dogg.
Tiger Rag Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you are tuned in.
Talk LSU sports, interviews, opinions, and your calls around the Tiger Nation.
Baton Rouge was a life for me. Home with LSU Tigers.
Now more Tiger Rag Radio.
Hey, we love to score and get highlights and championships and play to win.
Tiger Rag Radio.
Continuing our conversation, it's a good one with Sam Hutchens from the Clarion-Ledger, and we talked all about the lawsuit that Ole Miss has filed. If you want to listen back to that, catch it on the podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, or the show also gets uploaded to YouTube as well. But let's talk about the game itself. Obviously, both teams have games before that. LSU's got Clemson, Ole Miss has got Louisville, but we're all focusing, or a lot of the focus already, on the game September 19th. Pete Golding obviously did very well in the postseason, but he had Charlie Weiss as his offensive play caller. What's this Ole Miss offense going to look like without Charlie Weiss and Lane Kiffin directing it?
Yeah, they hope it'll look pretty similar. They brought in an offensive coordinator who had experience in the system, experience with Lane in John David Baker, who had spent the past couple of years as the offensive coordinator of Eastern Carolina. So Pete Golding, as a defensive guy, his focus on offenses kind of don't fix what ain't broke, right? And especially bringing back Trinidad Chambliss at quarterback and Kewan Lacey at running back. I'm still expecting them to be pretty up-tempo, right? And, lean on your stars, Trinidad and Kewan. So the hope in Oxford inside the building is that the offense looks and feels pretty similar, although it'll be a completely new cast of wide receivers pretty much.
Sam, how much did you get to cover practice during preseason before the opener last year at Ole Miss with Lane?
Well, little, and I say that we got to theoretically watch practice a few times, but a lot of it was stretching and warming up.
Okay.
So,
that's how it is here for the most part. But
yeah. I guess it kind of depends on your definition of practice a little bit. But that doesn't. And frankly, Pete was kind of the same here, right? He kept that the same too in terms of, you're not coming in and certainly not watching them test out all the trick plays. So it's how college football is going these days.
Now, Jeff and Case. Sam covered Lane Kiffin's hot yoga. Man, how did you get clearance for that, dude? That's some good reporting. And how'd that go?
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, that was kind of my holy grail story that I'd always wanted to do. It stuck in my mind because I'm sure just like he talked about it in Baton Rouge, it has changed his life, and he looks like a different person than when he came to Oxford and from his FAU days. And, it's impressive. So, I asked, Lane one day, hey, Lane, you mind if I tag along to one of your classes? And he said, set your alarm. So I woke up I don't know, it started at 6 a.m. or something. But that was, I think, the most fun story I've ever done, just in terms of out of my element, I felt like, but doing something unique. And that was memorable. I got through it, guys. They told me that if you need to step out of the room, or take a breather, you can. But I was looking around like, man, no one else is stepping out, so I didn't want to be the one to step out. So, I got through it.
That's pretty cool.
How is Pete Golding ready for this challenge that he faces to try to follow in Lane Kiffin's footsteps? Yeah.
I think it's made a little easier because Lane is so disliked around here. It's not like following, it's not like you're Kalen DeBoer where you have to follow the legend who is beloved, right? And so I think people here in Oxford want Pete to succeed so much and want him to, they wish him the best just because they want him to, stick it to the other guy, so to speak. So I think that is certainly different. But, feelings don't matter much when you get to week one. And, this is his first season at any level being a head coach. So everything that I've seen gives me confidence that he can carry out head coaching duties effectively and be a good coach. But, the thing that we've kind of joked is we've never seen a Pete Golding team after a loss. How do they respond, right? Because their only loss last year ended the season. So, I'm wondering the same thing as y'all.
I think that's the million-dollar question, because we've seen it all the time in football. Guys could be great defensive or offensive coordinators, but when you put them in that head coaching seat, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. They're only good at organizing and coming up with game plans for one side of the ball, but trying to lead the entire team, that's just too much. And it's interesting to see if Pete can somehow pull that off.
And I think Pete talks about it in terms of when you become the head coach, you kind of lose the coach role a little bit. You're not, it's less emphasis on being the defensive coordinator and breaking down the film with your group of guys. It's more administrative and go talk to those darn reporters and, go meet with the donors more and stuff. And it's so much, outside of the X's and O's of winning football games that comes with that title. So that's kind of what Golding has talked about this offseason is his goal to hire others and hire other people who can take care of that, and for him to allow him to do what he still loves best, which is coach football and coach defense.
Well, how good is this defense going to be?
They say to be pretty good. It's a lot of new players, right? I think the thing, if you're Ole Miss, is when you lose guys like your leading sack getter in Princewill, Umanmielen, and a guy like T.J. Daugherty in the middle of the defense, like it hurts. And it also clears up cap space, quote unquote, to go get other guys. So we'll see if they hit on their portal guys. We'll see who steps up. But I think the defensive front will be really good. I think the linebackers will be really good. There's a guy, Keaton Thomas, who's coming in from Baylor, who has some great tape. So I think they'll be good.
Sam, thanks a lot for a fun and informative half hour. Good. Congratulations on the hot yoga story, and congratulations on this story too today with the lawsuit. You never know what you're going to cover. That's for sure.
Thanks, guys. We can do it again sometime.
Yeah, we'll certainly talk again prior to September 19th. Sam Hutchens from the Clarion-Ledger. Check out the article that he has up there right now on the lawsuit that Ole Miss has filed against Princewill, Umanmielen, and also Devin Harper. We'll take a break. When we come back, Blake Toppmeyer from the USA Today. He'll join us, so stay tuned. A lot more to get to as we continue to roll on with Tiger Rag Radio.
The East Baton Rouge Parish Library believes that a thriving business community is good for us all. That's why we help entrepreneurs start a business with tools like Gale Business Builder. Keep commerce rolling by providing free access to computers and free Wi-Fi at 15 branch locations. Get a library card. Grow your business at ebrpl.com/departments/small business.
And we're back with Tiger Rag Radio.
Back here on Tiger Rag Radio. Good show here so far. We got another half hour to go, and we got another guest for you, and that's Blake Toppmeyer from USA Today. He's the senior national college football columnist for USA Today. Blake, thanks a lot for joining us on Tiger Rag Radio. Jeff Palermo, Glenn Gilbo, and Case Kieschnick. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. You guys?
I'm doing well. Hey, I was checking out when Glenn told me we were going to have you as a guest. I was checking out one of your recent articles or columns about Dabo Swinney, who, of course, will be in Tiger Stadium on September 5th for that highly anticipated season opener, LSU and Clemson. It certainly looks like the glory days of Clemson are in the past. I know Dabo has changed a little bit in the sense that he's a little bit more willing to go out into the transfer portal and sign guys there. They've added guys out of the transfer portal, but you had an interesting column comparing Dabo Swinney to Hugh Freeze and how Hugh Freeze sounded in Auburn, trying to look back at his glory days back at Ole Miss. Are we seeing the near end here in Dabo's time at Clemson? I know the fans still love him there. They'll always love the fact that he won 2 national championships there, but everybody's replaceable, I guess, eventually, Blake. But how do you see Dabo going into 2026 and whether he's ready to get back towards being one of the contenders again for the college football championship?
Well, he's not ready to get back to being a contender for the national championship. I mean, you just look at his team, and I don't think there's much debating that. The glory days of Dabo at Clemson are behind him, and yes, he does sound like Hugh Freeze in the latter years of Hugh's career, because if you recall, Hugh at Auburn spent 3 years telling everybody about how good he used to be, and it's true. When Hugh was at Ole Miss, I mean, he gave Nick Saban fits. Nick Saban admits that that's one of the reasons why he hired Lane Kiffin to evolve Alabama's offense. Was Alabama lost to Ole Miss in back-to-back years, and Nick knew he needed to evolve. And now Dabo sounds like Hugh. At ACC Media Days a couple weeks ago, Dabo spent some time reminding everybody of how good he used to be. And undeniably, Dabo Swinney used to be a great coach. He used to be the best coach this side of Nick Saban, but the key words there that matter are used to be. And He's taken more transfers this past offseason than he typically does, but he's still not taking as many transfers than his industry peers. He didn't go out and get a transfer quarterback. As he put it, he's going to be raked over the coals if his quarterback plan doesn't work. And again, that draws some similarities to Hugh Freeze. We remember ahead of the 2024 season, Hugh said he didn't think it was worth it to go out and get a transfer quarterback. Well, those of us who saw Auburn play that year, I think came to the conclusion that it would have been worth it. So I don't see how you can look at Clemson and come away with any other takeaway than this is a program that is a far cry from what it was in its heyday, and it doesn't look like it's really imminent that it's going to be back to its heyday anytime soon. I think Dabo, frankly, might benefit from a reboot somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he chooses to pursue that, I don't know. I do think there would be some demand for him elsewhere, much like James Franklin landed at Virginia Tech. Dabo could go get another job. I think that would benefit him. I just don't know what his appetite is for that.
Talking to Blake Toppmeyer, USA Today columnist. Well, if you're going to compare the Dabo Sweeney, I'm going to make another comparison for you. To me, Pete Golding is reminding me of Les Miles. Pete comes in, and he's the most popular guy in the world because everybody wants to like him more than the ex-husband, who left. And it was the same thing with when Les came in and replaced Nick, and they just kind of fantasized that one was as good as the other. Do you think Pete Golding, he hasn't done much. He hasn't never been a head coach before except for a couple of games. How do you see him in his career at Ole Miss?
It was really interesting to me, Glenn, when I saw the predicted order of finish at SEC Media Days with Ole Miss 3 and LSU 5. And I thought, wait a second, I thought LSU was the one that plundered the other's coach, the coach that everybody wanted, right? I don't know if there's I don't know if the media members are just en masse tired of Lane or throughout the industry. I think Lane put a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth with the way he left Ole Miss, and I don't know, do you take it out on Lane by voting him down in the preseason poll or what? Because I was surprised to see LSU 2 spots behind Ole Miss, because I think we have no idea how Pete Golding's going to do at Ole Miss. He got a lot of fanfare for beating Kirby in the quarterfinals, as he should. That was a marquee win. It earned him a lot of goodwill at Ole Miss, but Trinidad Chambliss had as much to do with that win as anybody did. And the best thing Pete Golding's done so far is making sure Trinidad Chambliss came back to Ole Miss, and making sure Kejuan Lacey, his running back, came back to Ole Miss. So I understand why everybody's eating out of the hand of Pete's palm right now, because he's the 180 of Lane Kiffin. I think if you're an Ole Miss fan who got left at the altar by Lane Kiffin, you want the next person to be the 180 of the one who left you. And if you're national media, you're probably a little bit tired of Lane right now. But the bottom line is Lane has built a program. He's been a CEO. He's taken a team to the playoff, and maybe Pete will do all of that. But other than Ole Miss, no other SEC school would have hired Pete Golding to be its head coach last year. He got the job because he was the in-house option. They needed someone to keep the team together, keep the locker room together after Lane left him high and dry. And so Pete was the man, and he did a great job with it. Can he do that over the course of a season? I'm much more, I think, in the wait-and-see camp than I guess some of my peers are. I wouldn't have Ole Miss this high in my predicted order of finish, because I'd like to see it happen over the course of a full season rather than just the one marquee victory, which undeniably was a huge win for Pete Golding and got him a lot of goodwill.
Talking with Blake Toppmeyer from the USA Today. He's a senior national college football columnist for the USA Today. You recently wrote about Josh Heupel, the Tennessee head football coach. You feel he's one of the most underrated coaches in the conference, and now not much is expected from them. They could be starting a freshman quarterback this season. It's a game that, when you look at LSU's schedule, not a lot of people talk about, maybe obviously because there's the Ole Miss game, there's all Texas is coming to Tiger Stadium, but that's going to be a very interesting matchup late in the season when LSU has to go to Knoxville. Do you think Tennessee can surprise some folks this season?
I think they can. Josh Heupel is a very high floor coach. He's never had a losing season in 5 years at Tennessee or in his 3 years at UCF. He's very rinse and repeat when it comes to his quarterbacks. I mean, this guy had a very good season with Joe Milton as his quarterback. Of course, he had a great season with Hendon Hooker. And then you look at last year, Joey Aguilar had an excellent season for Tennessee. Tennessee had one of the best offenses in the conference. Now, its defense wasn't very good, and that's why Jim Knowles has been hired as one of the highest-paid defensive coordinators in the country to fix that Tennessee defense. Will that happen in year one? I don't know. Normally it takes until year two, if you look at the course of Jim Knowles' career, when he really starts to have an impact. That's what happened at Oklahoma State. That's what happened at Ohio State. And then, well, we didn't get to see Jim Knowles in year two at Penn State because that staff fell apart. But I think he's going to be a good hire for Tennessee. I don't know how much impact he's going to have in year one, but I trust Heupel with that offense. Again, high floor coach. He doesn't have losing seasons. We don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be at Tennessee. As you mentioned, it could be the freshman, but regardless of who wins the job, I mean, I just trust this guy with quarterbacks. And I do feel like, that could be a bit of a sleeper. I agree with that premise. And I think, as you mentioned, I think he's one of the more underrated coaches in the conference. I mean, I look at some of these off-season rankings, and at USA Today, I had a ballot, but a lot of my colleagues didn't see it like I did because Josh Heupel was ranked 24th in the nation in our collection of votes at USA Today. I had him much higher than that. I think this guy's much better than 24th in the country. Again, when you're having 8 and 5 as your down seasons, which is what happened last year, that means you're pretty good.
The thing about Josh with me is that he hasn't been able to go get that really great quarterback either from the portal. He's made good out of quarterbacks that didn't come in, with great expectations. Why do you think he hasn't been able to nab some of the quarterbacks out there?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. I think he's not been as hard after the transfer quarterbacks as some others in the industry have been. So I think that's a piece of it. They thought they had their sign and develop guy in Nico Iamaleava, and I think if Nico would have stayed with Heupel, his career could have taken off last year and this year. But they thought they had their guy there. Of course, we know that story. He didn't stay. He wanted more money than Tennessee was willing to give. But in terms of the transfers, it just seems like Heupel's appetite for transfer quarterbacks hasn't been as high as others. I mean, Joey Aguilar last year, of course, Tennessee got him because UCLA decided they didn't want him. And usually that's not a ringing endorsement for a guy. When UCLA decides they don't want you as their starting quarterback, I mean, it's not necessarily a recipe for success, but then he comes into Tennessee and has one of the best seasons of any quarterback. Not as good as Trinidad Chambliss or Diego Pavia, but Joey Aguilar was a top 5 quarterback at the conference. So you're right, Glenn. Like he makes good with what he's got. Why can't he go out and get that marquee transfer? Some would say it's because Heupel hasn't had a guy crush it in the NFL. I think that narrative maybe used to apply, but now it's all about sold to the highest bidder. So I don't even think that narrative applies anymore. It is kind of hard to put your finger on why he's not getting those top-level transfers, but he's shown he hasn't needed it at quarterback anyway.
Well, he didn't fly to Baton Rouge and go get Sam Levitt like Lane Kiffin went to Knoxville to go get Sam Levitt. So maybe that's the thing. That's the thing. He's got to get on a plane and go actually steal the guy back. Just kidding. But a final question here for you, Blake. Where are we going with the college football playoff? Do you believe it's going to be 24 teams here sooner than later?
I think what'll be interesting to see is how many teams does the SEC get in this year, and how vitriolic is the blowback if they don't get as many bids as what the coaches, the chancellors, the presidents want, right? I mean, we know the SEC is going to 9 conference games this year. I actually don't think that is going to have a big impact on the number of bids the league gets. Past 2 years, the SEC's averaged 4 bids, 3 bids in year 1 of the 12-team playoff, 5 bids last year, average of 4. I think they're going to continue to average 4 bids as long as the 12-team playoff remains in place. I don't think that's going to substantially change with the 9-game conference schedule. But, if If the blowback from the coaching ranks rises up to the chancellor and the president level of not getting enough bids, then I think there's a higher possibility of the SEC acquiescing to what the Big Ten wants of 24 teams. But right now we hear from all the coaches that they want playoff expansion, and I think some of the coaches are willing to go to 24 if they can't get 16. I'm not sure that appetite is as big in the president and chancellor ranks. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't some exceptions to that. I think some chancellors and presidents would go for 24 if they couldn't get 16, but I don't think there's uniformity. I don't think there's uniformity with much, quite frankly, between the SEC's chancellors and presidents. And without, I think, more of a push from the chancellor and president ranks to go to 24, I don't think you're going to see Greg Sankey pivot, because ESPN doesn't want 24, and I think Greg Sankey is very cognizant of what his media partner wants. We know ESPN does not want more than a 16-team playoff. I think that's part of the reason why Greg Sankey does not want more than a 16-team playoff. Frankly, I think that's part of the reason why the SEC went to a 9-game conference schedule. That's what ESPN probably wants, right? If the presidents and chancellors ultimately tell Greg Sankey he's got to change his opinion and go make a deal on 24, I think he'll do it. I don't think he's gotten that call from the chancellors and presidents yet. Let's wait and see what happens with the playoff this year, see how many bids the SEC gets, see if the SEC gets a team to the national championship game.
Does ESPN want fewer SEC teams in the playoffs? Because that's what's been happening.
I don't think they want fewer SEC teams in the playoff, but I think their biggest desire is they don't want to go past 16.
They want balance. They want competitive balance. That's what Greg says is great now, and Nick Saban too.
Yeah. Hey, great insight, Blake. We appreciate it, man. We got to run to a break, but we'll get you back on sometime in September. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it. Good stuff over at USA Today, and we'll talk again here soon.
Okay, good talking to you guys.
All right, Blake Toppmeyer from the USA Today, senior national college football columnist. We're late for a break. Let's take it here on Tiger Rag Radio.
Now more Tiger Rag Radio.
Still got to get one more break in before we're out of here tonight. Glenn, I wanted to ask you quickly, a little baseball talk here. We only got about a minute or two to be on this topic. What do you make out of the Logan Schmidt situation? The young man who was drafted in the second round by the Cleveland Guardians did not sign with Cleveland. He is an LSU signee, but has yet to make a decision on whether he will sign at LSU. If he signs at LSU, he has to be at LSU for 3 seasons. If he goes the junior college route, he can re-enter the draft next year and see if he can't get the money that he's looking for there.
Yeah, boy, 1.6 or 1.7 wasn't enough for him with the Guardians, and LSU's not going to pay him more than 1.7. Now, they'll probably give him a nice package, and then so that'll be good walking around money until he can try again, but that's 3 years. So, I don't know if he wants to wait that long, especially if he thinks he could get the money next year after a year in junior college. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes the guys, what they do, like, William Schmidt did this and other players did this. Like if they don't, they set a high number, and if they don't get it, well, I'll go to college. So if that's what he's thinking, then LSU's going to have a great pitcher for 3 years.
Yeah, he could, but he may just want to try to go to junior college level and see if he can't become a first-round pick next year and get the money that he's looking for.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, because he's probably thinking, I'll just, a year from now, maybe a different team with more money will take me.
By the way, as many people know, the collective bargaining agreement between the Players Association and Major League Baseball owners expires in December. One of the talking points that they are discussing in the negotiations is making all college baseball players eligible after their sophomore season. So that means for LSU, you might have some of all these great players, like a Dylan Cruz would have only been at LSU for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's not enough that you're already, losing guys you want to the portal. So now you lose another way to keep a program strong for year after year.
More transition, which is nice about college baseball, because you could see a guy like Jake Brown for 3 years, or a Dylan Cruz for 3 years, or a Trey Morgan for. I would just hate to see that get reduced even more. Let's take another break. We'll wrap up the show right after this here on Tiger Rag Radio.
Tiger Rag Radio is back on the air.
Yeah, we're back here on Tiger Rag Radio. Jeff Palermo along with Glenn Guilbeau and Case Kieschnick to wrap up the show. LSU men's basketball schedule came out yesterday. I think it's a pretty good non-conference schedule. You got to make the trip up to Gonzaga. You have the trip over to Houston and play the Cougars, who were a Sweet 16 team last year. That game will be played in the Toyota Center. I think some of the home non-conference game, even a team like High Point, they made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament. The Queens College, they were in the NCAA tournament last year. I'm intrigued by the Friday night Ole Miss game on Mardi Gras weekend. I think that could be a little fun, especially when you consider the rivalry between the two schools. And, of course, Will Wade's the coach, so it's going to be a heck of a lot more interesting.
I'm excited about some of the in-state non-conference matchups that you got going on this year. Something that feels like kind of been missing, and honestly that you can't really write off when you have all the question marks that are on this LSU roster. But you welcome UL Lafayette, La Tech, ULM,
right.
LSU, NO.
Yeah, and nothing against and they'll have LSU UNO as a season opener, which is a good one. But it seemed like that's fine. You have like one Southland team. It's when you got like four of them on your schedule. That's when it gets a little bit. And then you mix in a couple of SWAC schools in there. Then you're not testing yourself at all. At least if you're playing Louisiana Tech and UL Lafayette, those are two programs that are going to have moderate to maybe even better than moderate success in the Sun Belt.
Well, and that was something Will Wade was kind of known for in his first stint, is he really welcomed that mid-major competition in the non-conference. It helps out with the net rating and the KenPom and all that, and it's something he's really encouraged, and you saw in his schedules, and you're seeing it in his first year.
Well, he didn't welcome the Cajuns in that NIT game. Your all-time favorite game, Jeff.
It's one of my favorite post games.
You know what's going to be cool is that LSU McNeese exhibition game.
Yes,
that place is going to be sold out.
Yes, man. That'll be in October. That'll get people hopping.
I think I'm going to drive down to Lake Charles for that.
Yeah,
man.
And then they make two trips to the West Coast. They, as I mentioned, they're playing Gonzaga in middle of November, and they'll be a top 25 team, of course. And then they're going and playing in that tournament in Palm Springs, and we'll find out who the opponents will be next month on that. So a lot to look forward to.
As soon as they get that roster, as soon as they get about 4 or 5 more players, they'll be good.
Yes. All right, for Case Kieschnick, Glenn Guilbeau, I'm Jeff Palermo. Thanks a lot to our guest, John Eads from WAFB. Sam Hutchens was great from the Clarion-Ledger. And Blake Toppmeyer, man, good information from him as well at USA Today. That will do it for this show. Check out TigerRag.com. Plenty of player profiles. They're getting you ready for preseason camp. Whole bunch of information over there. And until next Tuesday, have a great night, everyone.
Tiger Rag is everywhere. Online at TigerRag.com. Like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/TigerRag Magazine. Or follow us on Twitter at Tiger_Rag.